"Move now," Maya shouted, her voice sharp and urgent, cutting through the stillness of the Wyoming afternoon. Snow crunched beneath her boots as she lunged forward, wrapping her arms protectively around the trembling 6-year-old girl. Behind them, the masked man raised his gun, eyes hidden behind dark goggles, breath fogging in the cold. A shot rang out. Bark exploded from the tree inches away from where Maya had just stood. "Run, Evelyn. Run to the trees," she yelled, pushing the girl gently but firmly toward the thicket. Evelyn hesitated, frozen in place by fear, her tiny fingers gripping Maya's coat. The second man stepped out from behind the guest house, dressed in black from head to toe, holding someone's phone. They knew the cameras. They had timed this. Maya's heart pounded like a drumbeat in her ears. She positioned herself in front of Evelyn and exhaled deeply. This was no random break-in. This was a coordinated, professional attempt, and she was standing between them and the child. The first man stepped forward, aiming. Maya moved before he could blink. She pivoted on her right foot, swept low, and took his legs out from under him with a swift kick. He grunted as he hit the snow-covered ground. She grabbed the wrist with the gun, twisted hard until it popped, and flung the weapon across the yard. "Stay down," she hissed. The second attacker rushed her, swinging a baton. She ducked, rolled, came up behind him, and drove her elbow into his ribs. He staggered. She swept his legs out, disarming him mid-fall. Silence followed. Just Evelyn's breathing short, sharp, frightened. Maya turned to the girl. Her skin was pale, lips trembling from shock. "It's okay," Maya whispered, brushing snow from Evelyn's hair. "I'm here. I won't let anyone take you." Sirens howled in the distance. The estate security had finally caught up. Within minutes, uniformed officers swarmed the yard, guns drawn. Maya raised her hands as she knelt beside Evelyn, shielding her body. One officer shouted, "Drop the child." "She's the victim," Maya barked back. "I'm the nanny. They tried to take her." The guards recognized her. "It's Maya Williams, Richard Langston's caregiver." Paramedics rushed forward to check Evelyn. Maya stood back, bloody knuckles hidden in her coat pocket. Her breath came in icy clouds. From the driveway, the sound of tires screeching over gravel. A sleek black Range Rover slid to a stop. The door flew open. Richard Langston stepped out. His presence was as commanding as the headlines made him out to be. Tall, broad-shouldered, tailored navy coat sweeping around his knees. But in that moment, the billionaire looked more like a desperate father than a mogul. "Where's Evelyn?" he demanded. "She's safe," one guard said, guiding him forward. He saw her then, his daughter clinging to Maya, sobbing silently. "Daddy," Evelyn murmured, but didn't let go of Maya. Richard slowed, his eyes locked with Maya's. There was blood on her temple, a rip in her coat, and snow melting off her sleeves. But her eyes, dark, calm, steady, held his. "She protected her," someone said behind him. "Took down both attackers. Alone." Richard didn't speak. His gaze flicked to the unconscious men in the snow, then to the shattered tree trunk with the bullet mark, then back to his daughter, who had her face buried in Maya's chest. His voice came low, rough. "Get the full footage." "Yes, sir." Maya rose slowly. "She needs warmth. She's shaking." "I'll take her," Richard offered, stepping closer. "No," Evelyn screamed, holding tighter. "Don't take Maya." Everyone froze. Richard's face tightened. "Wait. Before we continue, if this story touched your heart, please hit subscribe. It truly encourages us to bring you more powerful stories. Tell us in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to know our amazing viewers around the world." He crouched beside his daughter, hand out gently. "Sweetheart, you're okay now. I'm here." But Evelyn shook her head violently. "No, only Maya." A silence heavier than snow followed. If that moment touched your heart too, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts. You're not alone in feeling the power of quiet courage. Maya's voice softened. "Let her stay with me a bit longer. She's not ready." "Do I?" Richard nodded, though it clearly cost him something. A medic approached. "Miss, your hand." "I'm fine." They led Maya and Evelyn inside, through the heavy oak doors and into the warmth of the estate. A fire was already lit in the main hall, casting golden light against the dark wood walls. Evelyn clung to her like a second skin, silent except for the occasional whimper. In the corner of the room, a flat-screen monitor began replaying footage from the estate's security system. Richard stood alone, watching. He saw his daughter on the screen, skipping across the back lawn in her pink coat. Maya was steps behind, humming something. Then the masked men appeared. He watched Maya move not as a nanny, not as a civilian, but like a trained fighter. No hesitation, no fear, just instinct. She had risked everything. For his daughter. Richard swallowed hard. "Get me a full report," he said to the head of security. "Background check, real one, and bring Maya to my office when she's ready." Later that night, Maya sat in the child's room, her hand bandaged, eyes tired but alert. Evelyn slept beside her, fingers curled into the fabric of Maya's sleeve. Richard stood at the door. He didn't enter, just watched. Then quietly, he turned away. He didn't say thank you. Richard Langston sat alone in his study, the lights low, the only illumination coming from the fireplace crackling softly behind him. He held a crystal tumbler of scotch in his hand, untouched, the amber liquid catching flickers of orange from the flames. On the massive oak desk before him, a tablet replayed the footage from earlier that day over and over. He had already watched it 6 times. Each time, the same scene unfolded. His daughter playing in the snow. Maya, attentive but relaxed, keeping a gentle watch. The sudden appearance of 2 armed men. The chaos. The violence. And Maya unflinching, precise, fearless. Richard exhaled deeply and rubbed his temple with his thumb and forefinger. "Who are you, Maya Williams?" He had hired her through a trusted agency background, clean, glowing references, even a letter from a retired pediatric surgeon who called her a blessing to traumatized children. But nowhere had it said she could disable 2 trained men with military precision. He tapped the screen, pausing on the frame where Maya shielded Evelyn with her own body. The image froze mid-movement, Maya's face half-turned, eyes alert, jaw tight, protective, fierce. Not just a nanny, not just an employee. He set the tumbler down, untouched. A soft knock sounded at the door. "Come in," he said. It was Mrs. Keller, the housekeeper, late 50s, neat gray bun, apron always spotless. "She's still in Evelyn's room," she said quietly. "I know. She hasn't left her side." "I know that too." Mrs. Keller hesitated, then added, "She hasn't asked for anything, not even a painkiller." Richard glanced at her. "And the child?" "Sleeping, peacefully." A small smile. "First time in weeks, sir." He nodded slowly, eyes back on the paused screen. "Tell her, when she's ready, I'd like to speak with her, in the sunroom." Mrs. Keller dipped her head. "Of course." 15 minutes later, Maya entered the sunroom. She walked with a slight limp, nothing dramatic, just a stiffness in her left side. Her hair was tied back in a practical bun. Her clothes had changed. Now a simple navy sweater and dark jeans. But her eyes remained the same. Calm, steady, unreadable. "Sir," she said evenly. Richard looked up from the window. The snow was falling again, soft and heavy, blanketing the forest in white. "Please." He gestured to the chair opposite. "Sit." Maya did, hands resting on her knees. He studied her for a moment before speaking. "You have combat training." "Yes." "Ah, that wasn't in your resume." "No, sir." He nodded slowly. "Why?" Maya looked him in the eye. "Because I wasn't applying to be your bodyguard. I was applying to take care of your daughter." Her voice was steady, without a hint of arrogance. "And yet," Richard said, "you did both." "I did what was necessary." Another pause. "Where did you train?" "Military Youth Academy. Taekwondo black belt. Self-defense instructor for high school girls in Atlanta. A beat. And 3 years in the National Guard." Richard arched an eyebrow. "Why leave?" "Medical discharge. Nothing permanent, but enough." He leaned back slightly. "You understand why I have to ask these things?" "I do." "Your file was limited. It was edited for your comfort." He blinked. "What does that mean?" Maya offered a half shrug. "We both know certain families don't look twice at a black nanny with a military record, especially not one who can break a man's wrist in under 3 seconds. Richard exhaled, a short huff through his nose. Fair point. A silence settled between them, not awkward, but weighted. Finally, he asked, "Why didn't you run?" "I couldn't," she replied simply. "She was there, and if I'd run, they would have taken her. I've seen what happens to girls like her when no one fights." Something flickered across her face, a shadow of memory. Richard saw it, and though he wanted to ask, he didn't. "Not yet." Instead, he said, "You saved her." Maya didn't respond. Richard leaned forward, elbows on knees. "Miss Williams, Maya. My daughter has barely spoken a full sentence since her mother passed. She doesn't trust anyone, not even me. But tonight, she clung to you like you were her only safe place. Why is that?" Maya considered her words. "Because I didn't talk down to her. I didn't bribe her with toys. I let her come to me. And when she did, I listened. She called you Mommy." Maya's eyes flickered. "I heard." Richard sat back, as if trying to digest that reality. "Do you plan on staying?" he asked. Maya met his gaze. "Do you plan on letting me?" Another silence. "I don't fully know who's behind this," Richard admitted. "But someone tried to take my daughter. Not for ransom, for something more calculated. And you," he nodded at her, "you may be the only reason she's still here." Nanny. He stood, walked to the cabinet, and pulled out a sealed manila envelope. "Your original contract," he said, placing it on the table. "Void. Effective immediately." Maya's jaw tightened. "In its place," he continued, sliding over a second envelope. "A new offer. Full authority over Evelyn's security and daily care. Medical coverage. Triple your salary. Private quarters." She didn't reach for it. "What's the catch?" she asked. Richard gave a small smile. "If you're still here and enjoying the story, we'd love your support. Take a second to hit subscribe. It really means a lot. Just one. Stay. Protect her. Keep doing what you've done, but now, with my full backing." Maya leaned forward slightly. "And trust? That's earned, not bought." Richard nodded once. "Understood." She stood. "I'll stay." For her. He watched her walk away, and for the first time in months, Richard Langston felt something he hadn't known he'd lost. The morning after the attack came quietly, like snowfall before dawn, slow, deliberate, and heavy with unspoken tension. The estate was unusually still. Security doubled. Staff hushed. Even the birds outside seemed to chirp with more caution. Maya stood in the kitchen, her hand wrapped around a steaming mug of black coffee, staring out the wide window that overlooked the snow-drenched backyard. The broken branches, the disrupted lawn evidence of last night's violence were now being covered by a fresh, clean blanket of snow. Nature trying to erase what it could not understand. Footsteps approached behind her. "Did you sleep at all, Mrs.?" Keller's voice was gentle but firm, the way older women speak when they've seen too much to tolerate half-truths. Maya turned slightly, offering a tired smile. "A few hours. Evelyn wouldn't let go. She finally passed out around 4. Mrs. Keller nodded, folding a tea towel neatly as if it were part of a sacred ritual. "Poor thing clings to you like breath." "I know," Maya whispered. "Doesn't surprise me." She set down the towel and poured herself a cup of chamomile. "You showed up when the world turned upside down. That child sees you as her anchor." Maya didn't respond. Her mind was elsewhere, looping over the sequence of events, replaying the angles, the missteps. Something didn't sit right. It wasn't just the ambush. It was how precise it had been. Someone had known Richard would be gone. Someone had known Evelyn would be outside. And someone had known the exact blind spots in the estate's security. That wasn't random. It was personal. "Mrs. Keller studied her over the rim of her cup. "You've seen this kind of thing before, haven't you?" Maya turned, surprised. "Why do you say that?" "Because you didn't flinch. Most people scream, cry, or freeze. You moved, like muscle memory." Maya met her gaze. "Let's just say I've been trained not to hesitate." The housekeeper nodded slowly, accepting that answer for now. "Well, this house needs more people like you." Just then, footsteps echoed from the hallway. Richard entered, dressed in a charcoal sweater and dark jeans, hair still damp from a shower. He looked less like a mogul today, more like a tired father. His eyes met Maya's. A word? Maya nodded and followed him down the hallway to the private den. The den was warm leather chairs, bookshelves, a fireplace still smoldering from the night before. A massive screen on the wall displayed the estate's camera feeds. At the center, paused on one frame, was a close-up of the second attacker's face. Mask removed, jaw bruised from where Maya had landed a clean strike. "Do you recognize him?" Richard asked. Maya stepped closer, examining the man's features. He was lean, mid-30s, with a military haircut and a snake tattoo on the left side of his neck. "No," she said slowly. "But that ink, it's gang. Ex-military, maybe. Not small. Time. We ran facial recognition," Richard said. "Name's Dorian Vess, dishonorably discharged from the Marines 5 years ago. Did some dirty contract work overseas. Suspected of kidnapping in Ukraine. Never charged." "Why Evelyn?" Maya asked. Richard turned to face her, jaw clenched. "That's what we're trying to find out." Maya crossed her arms. "You think this is connected to one of your business rivals?" He hesitated. "Possibly, or worse, someone inside." Maya raised an eyebrow. "You think it was an inside job?" Richard walked over to his desk, pulled out a slim folder, and handed it to her. "Read this." She opened it. Surveillance reports, employee movement logs, a list of gate access times. "Connor," she muttered. "The guard on shift yesterday. He logged out early. Exactly 10 minutes before the perimeter alarm was disabled," Richard confirmed. "You question him yet?" "He's missing." Maya cursed under her breath. "So whoever planned this knew how to move through your system." Richard nodded. "Which means whoever it is, they've been watching us for a while." She closed the folder. "We need to tighten the circle." "We already have," Richard said. "Only 6 people have clearance to Evelyn's wing. You, me, Mrs. Keller, Dr. Simon, her pediatrician, and 2 vetted guards. That's it. And the nanny agency? Gone. Fired. The contract is void." Maya took a breath, considering the implications. If this wasn't about money, what was it about? Richard hesitated. Then, in a voice lower than before, he said, "There's something you should know." Maya leaned in. "A few weeks ago, I received an anonymous message. Just 3 words. She knows everything." "She?" Maya asked. "I thought it was spam." Then this happened. He stared at the screen again. "Someone thinks Evelyn knows something. Or worse, someone thinks she's leverage." Maya frowned. "She's 6, Richard. What could she possibly know? Maybe it's not what she knows. Maybe it's what she represents." That gave Maya pause. Then she asked carefully, "Is there anything about Evelyn's mother that didn't make the papers?" Richard looked away, lips tightening. "She died in a car crash. That's what the world believes. But the brakes on her vehicle had been tampered with. It was ruled an accident due to lack of evidence. But I never believed it was random." Maya felt a chill crawl up her spine. "So this goes back further than we thought." He nodded. "Much further." They stood in silence for a moment, the weight of the past pressing down like snow on a collapsing roof. Then Maya said, "We need to move her. This house isn't safe anymore." "I agree. I have a place," she added. "Off-grid. My uncle's cabin in the Rockies. 1 road in, 1 out. No cameras, no cell service." Richard looked at her, surprised. "You're full of surprises," he muttered. "I'm full of preparation," she corrected. "Let's do it." As Maya turned to leave, Richard added, "Maya." She paused. "Thank you." She nodded once, then left the room, footsteps silent. Back in Evelyn's room, the little girl stirred under the covers. "Maya?" she whispered. Maya crouched beside her and tucked a blanket tighter around her shoulders. "I'm right here, baby girl, always." The snow was thicker by morning, blanketing the winding mountain road in a crisp silence. Richard's private SUV, a matte black Ford Expedition, cut a slow trail up toward the foothills of the Rockies, following a map that Maya had drawn by hand. Not digital, not trackable. Just ink, memory, and caution. Evelyn was curled in the back seat, wrapped in a fuzzy pink blanket, asleep against a large teddy bear Maya had insisted on bringing. Her small breaths fogged the window with a soft rhythm. Richard drove, knuckles white on the wheel. Maya sat in the passenger seat, eyes sweeping the forest outside. "You sure no one can follow us here?" Richard asked, his voice low but tense. Maya nodded. "If they can, we've got bigger problems than kidnappers." He didn't smile. He hadn't smiled in days. "I still can't believe we're doing this," he muttered. "You said you trusted me." "I do," he admitted, surprising even himself. "More than anyone else right now." Daughtery. That silence returned the kind that only lives between people holding too much inside. Richard broke it. "So, the cabin, whose idea was it?" "My uncle's," Maya replied. "Vietnam vet. Paranoid about the government. Taught me how to make traps from soda cans and fishing wire when I was 6. Richard glanced at her. "Sounds like a man I'd get along with." "He's dead," she said simply. "Cancer." He nodded, not asking more. The road narrowed, flanked by thick pine and sharp inclines. After 20 minutes of twisting through the mountain pass, a small wooden gate appeared barely visible beneath snow-covered branches. Maya stepped out, entered a keypad hidden in a hollowed-out tree stump, and the gate creaked open. Richard whistled under his breath. "That's a bit elaborate." "You don't survive long in my world by trusting convenience," she said, getting back in. They pulled up to a 2-story wooden cabin with stone accents and a front porch that sagged just slightly on one side. Smoke already puffed from the chimney. Maya had called ahead to a local caretaker. Once inside, Evelyn stirred awake. "Where are we?" she whispered, blinking up at Maya. "In a safe place, sweetheart," Maya whispered back, brushing hair from the child's forehead. "No one can find us here." Evelyn clutched her hand tightly. Maya led her to the upstairs bedroom, a small room with wood-paneled walls and a window that looked out over a frozen creek. She tucked the girl in, humming an old tune under her breath. Richard stood at the doorway, watching the moment quietly. "She won't sleep without you," he said when they stepped out. "I know," Maya replied. "She'll need time." They went downstairs, where a fire crackled in the hearth. Maya handed Richard a mug of hot coffee and pulled a folded photo from her coat pocket. She stared at it for a long moment before passing it to him. It was a picture of 2 little girls, one clearly Maya, age 10 or so, and the other a younger girl with wide, shining eyes. "My sister," Maya said. "Jasmine. She's beautiful," Richard murmured. "She was 6 when she vanished." Richard looked up sharply. "We were walking home from school," Maya continued, voice even but distant. "I turned away for a second, literally 1 second. A white van pulled up, grabbed her, and was gone before I could scream. Jesus. They never found her. Never found who did it. Case went cold in 6 weeks. Police told my mom it was probably just a runaway." Her voice sharpened at the memory. 6 years old. They didn't care. Richard handed the photo back, quietly. "I swore I'd never let that happen again. To anyone. That's why you took this job?" She nodded. "I knew Evelyn had been through something. I could see it in her eyes. Same look Jasmine had right before." She stopped, exhaled. "You've carried that for a long time." "I trained for it," she said. "Learned how to fight. How to track. I worked under trauma therapists just to understand how to talk to kids. I made myself into what I needed to be for the next little girl who needed saving." Richard looked at her with something deeper than admiration. It wasn't pity. It wasn't gratitude. It was a quiet awe of someone who had lost everything and still found a reason to protect others. "She's lucky to have you," he said. "I'm the lucky one," Maya replied softly. "She reminded me why I started this." Outside, snow began falling again, thick and steady. Later that evening, after Evelyn fell asleep curled against Maya's side, Richard sat alone at the table flipping through the latest security reports that had managed to reach them by courier. None of the attackers had talked. Connor, the missing guard, was still unaccounted for. But then, tucked inside one of the reports, a single photo. A street camera still from a city alleyway, time-stamped 2 weeks ago. Richard stared at the image. A woman, tall, dark-haired, face obscured but unmistakable in posture. His dead wife. Standing, alive. Richard stood so fast his chair toppled behind him. He didn't realize he'd shouted until Maya rushed downstairs. "What is it?" He turned the paper toward her, hands trembling. This was taken 2 weeks ago." She stared at it, expression darkening. "She's supposed to be dead," Richard said, his voice hoarse. Maya looked from the photo to his eyes, then slowly lowered it. Looks like someone's been lying to both of us. The fire in the hearth crackled softly as Maya studied the photo Richard had thrust into her hands. The image was grainy but undeniable. A woman, cloaked in a long coat, her face partially obscured by shadows, but the way she stood rigid spine, one hand clenched tightly at her side, matched the few photographs Maya had seen of Rebecca Langston. Richard stood behind her, pacing like a man trying to outrun the past. She died. 3 years ago. Car crash in Napa. That's what the coroner said. What the police confirmed. What the press believed. But that, he jabbed a finger toward the photo. That's her. Maya remained calm, eyes still fixed on the page. Where was this taken? Santa Barbara. 2 weeks ago, near the Port District. Maya narrowed her eyes. And this just surfaced now? Richard exhaled, hands on hips. It was buried in a private investigator's file I'd requested back when the first threat started before I hired you. The agency dropped the investigation when nothing came up, but one of their assistants must have forwarded everything they had, and it just arrived today. Maya looked up. Do you think Evelyn saw her? Richard's eyes darkened. That's the part I can't answer. But if she did, it might explain everything. The nightmares, the drawings she hides under her bed, the ones she never lets anyone see? He nodded slowly. They both turned toward the ceiling where Evelyn lay sleeping, oblivious to the storm gathering beneath her. Maya folded the photo and slipped it into her jacket. We can't tell her. Not yet. I agree. And if it is Rebecca, we need to figure out what she wants, and why she never came back. Richard's expression turned cold. If she's behind this, if she orchestrated that kidnapping attempt, you can't go there, Maya said quietly. Not yet. She's still the mother of your child. His voice dropped to a whisper. But what kind of mother vanishes without a word, and then returns in shadows? Maya didn't answer. She simply rose and walked back toward the stairs. Richard followed. Where are you going? To check on Evelyn. The little girl was sprawled across the bed in the upstairs room, tangled in the blankets, her teddy bear tucked under her chin. A quiet smile played at the corners of her lips, one of the rare, peaceful expressions Maya had seen since she arrived. Maya sat beside her and pulled the covers up around her shoulders. Evelyn stirred but didn't wake. You've got a brave heart, little one, Maya whispered. I just hope it won't have to break. Richard stood in the doorway again, watching silently. She sleeps better when you're near, he said softly. I know. He stepped further inside. She used to have night terrors after Rebecca died. Screams that could shake the windows. But with you, she just breathes. Maya looked over at him. That's because I don't ask her to be okay. I just let her be. Richard nodded slowly, taking in the moment. Then his eyes dropped to Maya's bandaged hand. How bad is it? Just a deep bruise. Nothing broken. Let me see. She hesitated, then offered her hand. He gently unwrapped the gauze. Her knuckles were swollen, the skin discolored with mottled purple and red. You need ice. I'll live. He looked at her and said quietly, you don't have to be strong every second. Maya pulled her hand back. Yes, I do. The silence stretched again, but this time it didn't feel cold. It felt known. Richard stepped out of the room, returning a few minutes later with a small first aid kit and a frozen gel pack. He crouched beside the bed and pressed the pack gently to her hand. Better? Maya gave a reluctant nod. Thank you. Richard didn't move. He sat on the edge of the bed across from her, his gaze drifting toward Evelyn. I wasn't ready to be a father, he said suddenly. Rebecca was the warm one. The mother who sang lullabies and danced barefoot in the kitchen. I was. Building empires. Hosting shareholders. Missing birthdays. Maya listened, saying nothing. When she died, I was lost. Evelyn looked at me like I was a stranger. And I didn't blame her. I was one. But you're here now, Maya said quietly. He looked up. And so are you. No. Their eyes met. And something passed between them, not romantic. Not yet. But a thread of deep, mutual recognition. Two protectors. Two broken people trying to hold something pure together. A log cracked in the fireplace below. The wind howled softly against the cabin windows. Time passed. Eventually, Maya stood and walked toward the door. "We should be ready to move again soon," she said. "I don't think this place will stay secret for long." Ugh. Richard nodded, but before she could leave, he asked, "Can I trust you with her?" Maya turned back. "You already did." That night, Richard barely slept. He sat by the fire, the photo of Rebecca in his hands, staring at a past that refused to stay buried. And upstairs, Maya lay beside Evelyn, her injured hand resting on the child's back, feeling each breath, each beat, each promise. It was nearly 3 a.m. when the phone rang. Not the landline they had disconnected that, not the emergency satellite phone Richard kept in the lockbox. No, this was Maya's personal burner phone, the one she never turned on unless she had to. It vibrated against the wooden nightstand with a persistent buzz, jolting Maya awake. Evelyn stirred beside her but didn't wake. Maya sat up slowly, blinked at the glow of the screen, and read the number. Unknown, no caller ID. Her muscles tensed. She slipped out of bed, padded quietly into the hallway, and stepped onto the back porch. The air was sharp, clean, unforgiving. Snowflakes drifted lazily through the moonlight. She answered, "Hello?" Silence. Then, a voice, female, low, hoarse. "You shouldn't have brought her there." Maya's breath caught. "Who is this?" "She doesn't belong to you." Maya's tone hardened. "Who are you?" A pause. Then, "Tell Richard. He was never supposed to see me again." The line went dead. Maya stared at the phone, the echo of the voice crawling down her spine like ice water. She hit redial blocked. She opened the Trace app, scrambled location. Professional. She walked back inside, calm and deliberate, though her heart thudded like a warning drum. Downstairs, the fire had burned low. Richard sat in the den with a whiskey glass in hand, though the drink remained untouched. He looked up as Maya approached, already reading her expression. "What happened?" Maya handed him the phone. "I got a call." He stood instantly. "Who?" She didn't give a name, but she said, "You shouldn't have brought her there." And then, "Tell Richard he was never supposed to see me again." He froze. The glass in his hand trembled slightly before he set it down. "It was her," he said hoarsely. "You're sure?" "I know her voice. Even after 3 years. I'd know it in my sleep." Maya paced slowly, processing. "Why now? Why let you think she was dead? And why surface now only to threaten us?" Richard's face darkened. "Because I saw the photo. Maybe someone tipped her off. Or she's watching us." That landed like a brick between them. "We have to move," Maya said. "First light. No debate." Richard nodded. Agreed. He walked to the cabinet, pulled open a drawer, and retrieved a black leather file folder. Inside were printed bank records, legal filings, and a single sealed envelope. "I didn't want to go back to this," he said. "But if she's alive, we need to understand what she was involved in." Maya glanced over his shoulder as he opened the envelope. Inside was a notarized document, something Richard had found months after Rebecca's death. It detailed an offshore trust account, dated only weeks before the crash. The beneficiary? Not Evelyn, but an entity, the Andros Project. "What is this?" Maya asked. "I don't know," he replied. "I thought it was some tech startup, but it doesn't exist. No tax ID, no location. Could be a front for something else." Richard nodded grimly. "Something big enough to make her disappear. And now that she knows we're close, she's trying to scare us off. Or separate us," Maya added. "Divide the protection around Evelyn." He looked at her sharply. "She won't succeed." "No, she won't." As the sun rose, the decision was already made. They'd leave the cabin, drive east through the back roads of Colorado, and head for a private safe house Richard had used once before, an estate in the Appalachian woods, formerly owned by his grandfather. Remote, untraceable, defensibly. Before leaving, Maya knelt beside Evelyn's bed. "Hey, sweetheart," she whispered. Evelyn opened her eyes, sleepy and confused. "Where are we going?" "Someplace safer." "Is it because of the bad men?" Maya hesitated. "It's because of someone Mommy knew." Evelyn blinked. "Is Mommy coming?" Maya gently brushed her hair. "That's what we're trying to figure out." Evelyn was quiet, then whispered, "She used to sing to me. I remember her hands." "No." Maya nodded softly. You're very brave, you know that? The child wrapped her arms around Maya's neck and whispered, So are you. As they packed, Richard paused at the fireplace one last time, staring into the dying embers. I thought I buried her, he said aloud. I thought grief was the end. Maya stood beside him. Grief is the beginning. He looked at her, and for the first time, there was something raw in his expression. Vulnerability. They didn't speak again until the SUV pulled away from the cabin. In the rearview mirror, the past faded into pine trees and snow, but ahead there was something else. A confrontation, a truth, and perhaps a reckoning. The winding drive into the Appalachians was treacherous, not because of the road, though the icy hairpin turns tested Richard's nerves, but because of what loomed behind them. The call, the voice, the possibility that Rebecca Langston wasn't just alive, but calculating, watching, maybe even close. They drove in silence for hours, Evelyn dozing in the back seat with her head resting against Maya's arm. Richard stole glances through the rearview mirror, half to check the road, half to reassure himself she was still there. Safe, breathing, untouched by the chaos of adult lies. It wasn't until dusk settled over the woods that they arrived at the estate. To call it a cabin would have been a disservice. Built decades ago by Richard's grandfather, a Southern judge known for his obsession with privacy and whiskey, the Appalachian retreat was a fortress in disguise. Heavy stone foundation, reinforced doors, steel shutters camouflaged behind timber accents. And most importantly, no cameras, no wires, no connection to the outside world unless you lit a fire in the tall fieldstone chimney and watched the smoke curl like a signal to ghosts. Richard pulled the SUV into the covered portico. The gravel crunched beneath the tires, loud in the mountain stillness. Maya stepped out first, sweeping the perimeter with trained eyes. All quiet, she murmured. Richard carried Evelyn, still half asleep, into the house. The air inside was musty but familiar. It smelled of cedar, aged paper, and the distant echo of old secrets. Maya lit the fireplace while Richard secured the doors and powered up the backup generator. Do you think she knows about this place? Maya asked, glancing at him across the crackling flames. No, he said. Not even my closest business partners knew. My grandfather was the only one who ever came here with me. He believed the world was always listening. He wasn't wrong. They settled in. Maya took the front bedroom close enough to Evelyn's room to hear any movement. Richard took the opposite wing. Between them, reinforced walls and a hallway lined with old law books and framed photographs of men in suits with hard eyes. It was close to midnight when the knocking came. 3 slow raps on the back door. Precise, deliberate. Maya was up first, gun in hand, back pressed to the wall. Richard joined her, weapon drawn from the safe under the stairwell. They moved in silence, like dancers in a deadly rhythm. A pause, another knock, then a voice low, male, southern-tinted. Don't shoot. I'm not here to hurt you. Maya crept to the side window and peeked through the blinds. A man stood alone, hands raised. He wore a gray beanie, leather jacket, jeans dusted with road dirt. Late 40s, tall, familiar. Maya whispered, Do you know him? Richard frowned. That's... He opened the door halfway, still cautious. Sheriff Lowell? Afraid so, the man replied. Sorry to show up unannounced, but we need to talk. Richard stepped aside. Sheriff Hank Lowell had been a friend of Richard's grandfather, a Vietnam vet, semi-retired, with sharp eyes and a scar along his jawline he never talked about. He removed his hat as he entered, nodding toward Maya. You must be the one everyone's whispering about. Maya didn't lower her weapon until Richard gave her a nod. Lowell sat in the armchair beside the fire. I had a feeling you'd be here, he said. After the chatter I picked up on the scanner last night. Figured you'd run. Smart. Richard remained standing. You didn't tell anyone you saw us? Hell no. That's why I came at midnight and not with sirens. Maya leaned forward. What chatter? Lowell looked between them. Someone hacked into a private security network. Tried to access the DMV surveillance archive looking for vehicle tags in this area. Very specific timing. Maya's jaw tightened. They're tracing us by road cameras. They're trying, Lowell said, but not through legal channels. Whoever it is, they've got money. Access. And they're desperate, Richard added. She called Maya. Lowell's brows rose. Rebecca? Maya nodded, said I should have never brought Evelyn here, and that Richard was never supposed to see her again. Lowell exhaled slowly, eyes hardening. I never trusted that woman, even before the accident. Richard tensed. Why? Call it a hunch. The kind a lawman gets when someone smiles too much but means none of it. He looked at Maya. You ever look into her family background? I tried, she said. Nothing but dead ends and carefully curated images. Lowell reached into his coat and pulled out a folded paper. You might want to start with this. Maya unfolded it. A birth certificate, Rebecca Langston's, except the name wasn't Langston. It was Rebecca Thorne. Born in Baton Rouge. Parents deceased in a house fire when she was 13. Taken in by a guardian, one Lyle Andros. Maya's eyes narrowed. Andros. Like the Andros Project. Bingo. Richard stepped back like he'd been struck. Wait, you're saying my wife was raised by the man who started the shell corporation tied to the offshore trust account? Exactly, Lowell said. Rebecca didn't just marry into your world, Richard. She was planted in it. The fire crackled between them. Richard sank into the couch, rubbing his face with both hands. I was played. Worse, Maya said. You were recruited. Lowell leaned forward. I don't know what she's planning. But I do know this, whatever's coming, it started a long time ago. Before Evelyn. Before you. You were just the final piece. A silence stretched in the room, heavy and choking. Then Maya asked, Did you come here to warn us? Lowell nodded. And to offer backup. I've got a small team of my own. Off the books. Veterans. People who owe me favors. We can help. Maya studied him. Why you? Why risk it? He looked toward the stairs, where Evelyn slept. Because I've seen what happens when good men stay quiet. And that little girl deserves better than shadows and secrets. Maya met his gaze. Then let's make sure she gets it. By morning, the Appalachian estate transformed from a quiet refuge into a command center. Sheriff Lowell's off-the-books team arrived before dawn, 4 men and 1 woman, all former military, their eyes sharper than their age suggested. They moved with the unspoken efficiency of people who had fought together before, who didn't ask questions unless the silence was dangerous. Maya stood in the great room, surrounded by maps, burner phones, and a chalkboard where she'd begun sketching timelines. At the center, Rebecca Thorne. Not Langston. Not the grieving wife America remembered. But Thorne. Foster child. Ward of Lyle Andros. Vanished woman. Maya drew a thick red circle around Rebecca's name. Everything leads back to her, she said. Richard hovered behind her, staring at the same name like it might leap off the board and bite. Sheriff Lowell leaned against the mantel. I've got someone digging into Andros's financials. He died years ago, but some of his holdings still make noise offshore Bahamas, Caymans, Malta. What kind of noise? Maya asked. Shell companies, phantom payrolls, assets being moved in loops. All of it smells like ghost money. Richard exhaled sharply. I don't understand. If she had access to this kind of wealth and power, why the vanishing act? Why fake her death? Maya glanced at him. Because ghosts are harder to catch than enemies. He didn't respond, but his silence was edged with bitterness. Lowell unfolded a file and handed it to Maya. One more thing. Found this buried in an old case file from Baton Rouge PD. The night of the house fire that killed her parents? Turns out someone survived. A neighbor, teenager, said he saw a figure leaving the Thorne house just before it went up, but the testimony was dismissed, said the kid was high. Maya flipped through the pages, police reports, handwritten statements. Then she stopped cold. What is it? Richard asked. She held up a photograph, a blurry image of a young girl standing across the street from a burning home, backlit by flames. She was there, Maya said. She didn't run away from the fire. She watched it burn. Lowell's jaw tightened. That neighbor died 6 months later. Car accident. Unsolved. Richard muttered. Of course he did. The implications were becoming clear. Rebecca wasn't just connected to the Andros project. She was its product. Molded. Placed. Activated. And now she wanted Evelyn. Or worse, She wanted to control what Evelyn would become. Maya closed the file. I want access to that original estate trust. The one from the offshore account. If there's even a single wire transfer that links Rebecca to anyone still moving assets, we need to know. Richard nodded. I'll have my legal team discreetly request financials through a proxy. Lowell grunted. Make it quick. You've got maybe a week before someone pulls the plug on that trail. Upstairs, Evelyn sat on the floor with a deck of cards, building little houses from kings and queens. Her teddy bear sat across from her, holding the other half of the deck like an eager opponent. Maya stepped in and watched for a moment, quietly. Can I play? She asked. Evelyn looked up, smiled, and nodded. Together, they built a 3-tiered card house. It collapsed once. Then again. On the third try, it held. I used to build these with Mommy, Evelyn whispered. Maya paused. Do you remember anything else about her? Evelyn nodded. She had a song. She only sang it when I was scared. Do you remember the words? Evelyn shook her head. Just the feeling, like warm honey, and something about stars. Maya swallowed the lump in her throat. She loved you very much, sweetie. The little girl nodded again, but this time her eyes didn't shine. Then why did she leave? Maya had no answer for that. She kissed the top of Evelyn's head and said, sometimes people get lost in their own stories, but you're going to write your own, and it's going to be beautiful. That night, Maya walked into the study where Richard sat staring at his father's old journal, a thick, leather-bound relic, filled with quotes, verdicts, and warnings. She's grooming her, he said suddenly. Maya's brow furrowed. What? Evelyn. Rebecca's not trying to steal her back because of love. She's trying to shape her. To make her part of whatever Andros started. Maya's voice dropped. She's 6 years old. Richard turned a page. Exactly the right age. Old enough to remember, young enough to rewrite. The idea chilled them both. We have to find Rebecca, Maya said. Not just react. We need to get ahead. Lowell entered the room with urgency. You might get your chance sooner than you think. He tossed a security printout onto the table. Surveillance photo. Taken last night. Location, Asheville, North Carolina. Richard picked it up. Is that? It's her, Maya confirmed. Rebecca, in a long dark coat, walking beside a tall man with the same snake tattoo Maya had seen on the kidnapper weeks earlier. She's not hiding anymore, Lowell said. She's circling. Maya folded the photo slowly. Then it's time we go hunting. Asheville, a city tucked between the rolling hills of western North Carolina, known for its art scene, historic charm, and now, unbeknownst to the public, the reappearance of a woman who was supposed to be dead. By noon, Maya and Richard were on the road. Sheriff Lowell stayed behind to monitor the estate and protect Evelyn. They left with minimal gear. 2 burner phones, a Glock each, and a file folder filled with grainy surveillance images and half-finished truths. Maya drove. She preferred the feel of control when it came to the wheel. Richard sat beside her, flipping through the photos again, though he'd memorized every pixel. She's walking openly, he said, staring at Rebecca's blurred outline. She wants us to see her. She wants you to follow, Maya replied, voice calm but clipped. Richard looked over. You think it's a trap? It's a message, that she's watching, that she's close enough to take Evelyn if we slip. The rest of the drive was quiet, but tension hung thick between them.